Hello everyone, and we are having the Beauty Awards of the Biel Chess Festival of the Round 5. And I'm having here with me Mark Geiser, the winner of the Round 5 Beauty Award of the ATO tournament. Congratulations, Mark.
Thank you.
It was quite a nice game. Could you share some insights about it?
Okay, I'll gladly do that. I started out with e4, which I always like to do, and my opponent played a Sicilian, which I was happy to face.
Did you prepare for this game, or?
I didn't prepare specifically for the game, but before the tournament I went over all my openings with a computer.
Okay.
And as always I played a knight f3, and then he chose to play knight c6, which I was very happy to face, because I have a line I like to play here, which also works well online usually, which is to play bishop b5, sort of pinning the knight, not really pinning the knight, but attacking the knight with the option to take it later on. And my opponent turned it into a pin by moving to d6. And here I was thinking about taking already, or maybe doing something more aggressive, but I chose to play d3, which is a bit of a more solid move, and preparing to develop my dark squared bishop as well. My opponent chose to develop his knight to knight f6, which allowed me to attack his second knight as well with my other bishop. To this, he responded by attacking my light squared bishop, and I was facing theoretically the choice of moving it backwards or attacking the knight, but I always take the knight, and he has to take it back with the b-pawn, which leaves him with a structure that has some advantages, some disadvantages. I like having the connected pawns, and also think that if I move correctly, he will have a hard time developing his bishops to very active squares. I then choose to play h3, which I would never play in a faster game, but here I thought maybe if he pins my knight with his light square bishop, it could be a bit painful, because oftentimes people also fianchetto the dark squared bishop in these Sicilians, but he hadn't done so, which would have meant that moving to h3 afterwards, he could have put his bishop there, and pushing the g-pawn in front of my king wouldn't have been nice. And castling queenside was never an option with the open b file.
Of course, yeah.
So that's why I chose to play h3.
e5, no.
He responds by e5, which is a good move, because before I could have played e5 myself, which I wasn't happy to do, even though the engine says it's correct, but I didn't see perfect ways to move afterwards. So he chooses to do it,
You castled.
which made me castle, because it's very solid. He can't castle here. I know that I'm going to win if he does that. So we move on. He develops his bishop to unpin the knight also. I move c3 to put more pressure on the center and potentially go d4 later on. And then he attacks my bishop, and I decide to take. And this is, of course, very committal, because now he has the bishop pair and I have two knights.
But the center is blocked, so that's why the bishops are not so active.
Exactly, yes. And also this pawn is really a dagger for this bishop here. I move my knight to d2, which I didn't have to, but I felt like maybe these squares could be good for the knight. He moves his bishop to the most logical square. And this is maybe a bit of a slower move, but I know that in these structures, if I have a lot of pressure down the center, if it opens up, I will have a bit of an advantage, especially because he hasn't castled yet, which he does now. I move my knight here, maybe not the best move, but I felt maybe he feels inclined to take, which I would be happy, because then I could open up my rook on the a file. But he moves his queen there. I really don't know why. I think it would
Just
have been
connecting maybe the rooks,
Yeah, but I think it would have been stronger to go d7, maybe looking at the sacrifice in front of my king, potentially also strengthen the bishop. He did it anyway, and now I strike d4. This is probably one of the more interesting moves, because you think, okay, I have knights, why am I opening up the center? But I felt that After trading everything off, my knights will be on much more active squares, while his bishops at best can trade a knight, and I already have much more pressure down the D and E file, which I'm very happy to see, of course. And he, in a way, has to take, because if he allows me to push here, takes, this bishop is dead, this one too, horrible position, right? So he does take, I take, and here is a move which didn't surprise me, but it's not as straightforward, attacking my knight. I could push the pawns, potentially go to a counterattack, but I was really unsure of it, because especially if I don't attack this bishop and he takes, he has this protected pawn here, which is so hard to attack for me later on. So I take my knight away, he attacks my hanging pawn, and now I attack the bishop. Oops. He doesn't take the pawn, which is a wise decision, I think. It leaves a bit more uncertainty in the center, etc. And his bishop has already a good square to develop later on. Now I move c2 to protect my b2 pawn, and also to put more pressure on the c4 pawn. He correctly plays d5, locking up the center, protecting all of his pawns. And now I play this move, which I was already calculating quite a while ago, because it's the only way to really force some pawn trades here and taking a bit of solidity out of his position. And now he moves c3, the first big blunder. I was very... at first I thought, oh, I'll just take. And then I saw this move, bishop b4, lasering all of my pieces. And I was like, oh, but then I realized... when I calculated, if I just move my queen back, nothing happens. He can take my knight, but I have two pieces which can take it back. My pawns are solid, everything looking nice. So I just simply take the pawn. I'm up a pawn now. He moves his bishop here. I go out of the way. And now he moves his pawn here, which is a very logical move, which I saw a while ago, to put the bishop here, which is probably its only good square. I thought about playing g4, but I was a bit scared of opening up the lines that much in front of my king that early already. And I also thought these squares like b2, c1, they're not bad for my queen. She'll do some damage there too. So I simply moved it out of the way, strengthening that push too. He plays c5, which I feel is a solid move, trying to crack open the center even more, opening up lines, especially also for queen and bishop here towards my king, which I really didn't want to. That's why I was happy to play.
You're just attacking the bishop,
Exactly. He does decide to take my knight. And here is a very difficult decision. Do I take with the knight, do I take with the queen? The engine, I think, wants me to take with the queen. I decided against it because I felt after queen takes b3, it's getting very wild. Pawns are flying off the board. Suddenly, maybe he has some passed pawns. I didn't want any of that, so I take with the knight. Oops, sorry. He plays c4, which is a good move. Of course, I can't take because I would lose my queen and the game. I also can't take any other way. And now he's threatening to create some forks here. And I move this way. Computer says not the best move. I personally liked it because it allowed me to keep more eyes on this pawn. And also this square where he threatens the forks. He plays his rook here. Good move. Again, putting pressure here. I put my rook there. I was not afraid of this move, because then I could have moved my rook here. And if I can push this pawn, and he doesn't have a good way to defend it here, then my rooks here will just destroy his position immediately. He puts more pressure down the b file, very good move, I think. And now I play b4. Maybe not perfect play, but I felt now with my two pawns facing this one h pawn, 8 pawn, sorry, and long term me being able to really work my pieces into the right squares, maybe I can get a passed pawn here, which gets rolling really quickly. So here he decides to move his queen around a bit. I blockade the forking square. He moves his queen again. He also told me during the match that at this time he was really not seeing any concrete plans.
Yeah, because his bishop is very, very bad, and your knight is good.
Exactly. okay, threatening maybe this. Engine, I think, says to move the knight here or something crazy, but I wasn't
You
having.
didn't want to.
No. I moved my rook simply back, maybe
Okay.
later down the road, being able to put more A and B line pressure. He moves the queen back again. I advance my rook, and now is a very decisive moment. If I take here, I think my pawns, the double pawns on the A file, I didn't like that.
Yeah.
It didn't look good.
Understandable. Yeah.
A lot of trades happening here, maybe the bishop becoming active. I didn't want that. So I finally was able to move my knight here. And this move he really had to think for a long while, because I had it planned for a second. Because where does the knight want to go? Ideally here, where I can push my pawn, where it attacks that pawn, that square. Great knight there, outposted too, because you can't attack it with the bishop. More pressure. I open up the c3 square while also attacking this pawn. He decides to defend it with the king. Maybe not the best move, but still works. And now finally I get this in.
The trade
trades.
happens. Yeah.
And I thought about taking with the pawn, but I felt if one rook comes off the board, maybe there's a little bit less of a blockade going to happen later on. I trade rooks, he takes 2, I take again, he attacks my pawn. Oh, sorry. I defend it with my rook, he attacks my rook, I go up on a square where now maybe my fight against this bishop becomes more obvious. Everything is on dark squares. He's really struggling to have any effect on the game with that bishop. He moves it back.
Queen d1. Yeah.
Yes, I try to go here maybe to trade off queens or enter his side of the board. He goes back. I go up, maybe looking at that and also at that pawn. He moves his queen there, maybe looking at some checks, etc. I finally push because I think he's never going to remove that knight. That pawn stands there forever. Real issue. He blockades it while looking at my pawn. I defend it with the rook. He goes up, looking at that pawn, which was weak. I try to infiltrate, which is, I think, a very good move, because suddenly, if my rook gets here, maybe looking at sacrifice ideas, collecting all the pawns, getting the knight in, it's all horrible. The engine says it too. He basically has to trade rooks, so his defense becomes even weaker. I again try to go for the same idea, infiltrating on the A file. He doesn't let me, attacking everything. So I have to find some pretty precise moves to escape the checks and also the bishop while defending everything. And now I think it looks great. The pawn is really passed. He can't attack it in a meaningful way. If I was black at this point, I would already be thinking about maybe putting the bishop behind there to defend
blockade,
against this
yeah.
one. Yeah, looking kind of nasty. He goes up there, attacking everything, but now my queen gets behind the pawn. He goes here, second big blunder, loses a pawn, while I can defend my pawn here as well. Now the game is really basically just
Matter of time. And
winning end game, not making any big mistakes, defending everything. But my knight here is so strong. His bishop doesn't do anything, and then we shuffle around a bit, trade off this pawn here and this pawn. It's a bit of a risky decision, but I felt okay, makes everything much more simple to calculate. And after that, it doesn't take that long to strengthen up my pawns. This pawn he can never defend it because my knight will simply take the bishop, or I can move upwards. Oops. I push a bit. He tries to defend, but now I find this, I think, quite nice move, which threatens to take the bishop. And if it defends his bishop, I can push with a check. He has to move somewhere or blockade. I can move my pawn again, where it's not attackable. I can move that one too. And with these two dark squared connected pawns on the 6th and 7th rank, with my queen and my knight flying in, very easy win.
So he resigned here.
He resigned here, yes.
Mark, thank you so much for sharing the game. I want to ask, have you been to Biel before playing this tournament?
I have been here once because my girlfriend went to school here and she has some friends here, and I like coming here. So when I saw that there was a chess tournament in Biel, I was attracted, of course. And because it's during holidays, it's also very practical
Perfect
to
time,
come.
yeah.
For university students also.
But you live in Switzerland, yes?
Yeah, I study in Bern, but I originally come from Horn, which is at the Lake of Constance,
Oh, okay.
in more in the eastern side of Switzerland.
How do you enjoy here in Biel?
I've been liking it so far. There's some nice restaurants, also coffee shops. I think the playing hall and this whole Congress Center are really nice venues. And getting here is also very nice and easy if you come by public transport.
Do you enjoy to watch the Grandmaster triathlon players while playing there on the stage together with you in one playing hall?
It's a funny feeling. I actually never follow their games because without the lenses I can't see what they're doing. But it's nice to see famous players like Vincent Keimer, etc., right next to me. Also, Eric Rosen, which everyone knows.
Nice.
It makes it feel a bit more special to play here.
Thank you so much for your time for analysis. Congratulations. Here is a t-shirt from Biel Chess Festival to you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.